Hello! So we're recording with the phone today because my camera keeps overheating and I need to get this out today. So, this book, Goddess is in the Details by Debra Blake, Wisdom for the Everyday Witch. So this book was recommended in the witchy community here on YouTube eons ago. I want to say it was like 2009, 2010-ish. Somewhere in that ballpark. I remember quite a few channels talking about this book and then I just never got it until now. So, there are a couple of other reviews out there on this book, and so if you want to check those out, they are available. Personally, some of the things I agreed with and other things I didn't with some of the other reviews. So let's jump into my thoughts. And as per usual, when I am recording on my phone, I try not to edit too much because it takes forever and the software is not ideal. So yeah, this book, it is definitely a kind of more specific audience that they're trying to target, which is fine. So this is not aimed at beginners. That is very blatantly stated on page 1. If you're looking for Wicca 101, Witchcraft 101, this is not it, which is great. I wouldn't say it's advanced either. It's kind of the next step up from the foundational works. You're not going to have what are the elements, what are the witch's tools, how do you create sacred space, what are the holidays, stuff like that. That isn't in this book, really. Instead, this is after you've kind of got that foundational bit done, then you're moving into the next level of how do I incorporate witchcraft into the everyday of my life, not just sitting down at the altar. And in the way she goes about this, some people have issues. So if you are not in love with Wicca-based writing and crafts and stuff, maybe skip this one. Because it does, when later on in the book, it talks about, creating your own sacred wheel of the year kind of a deal, your own sacred year, where you include other holidays, not just the 8. So you might include Memorial Day or Valentine's Day or, a take on St. Patrick's Day, and you might celebrate Halloween and Samhain. Things like that. Obviously, it's based around the wheel of the year. That's a Wiccan thing. A lot of other traditions have included it, but it is mostly Wicca based, and other witchcraft traditions kind of do their own thing. It just depends on how far you go on different paths and things. But it also talks about, the beliefs and stuff. It's just kind of getting everyone on the same page. And I noticed, there's a few people that had issue with that because, harm none is super broad. Personally, it doesn't really bother me for that topic, but I know some people get a little iffy on it because they don't want anything to do with the Wicca and the harm none law and the law of 3 and all of that. So if those things bother you in a book, just skip it because it's there. You're gonna not love it for that reason, so don't waste your time. But if you're, a witch who goes, yeah, I started in Wicca, I've moved out of it, but some of those things you kind of carry along, or you've adjusted your own beliefs and you can read that and go, doesn't work for me, this is how I look at it, but that's fine, continue reading, you'll be fine. It's not like it's overly Wicca or overly kind of preachy about it. It's just kind of here's some basic beliefs. And for the most part, we can all agree, harming none could probably include let's not murder people, let's not abuse people. There's a lot of gray area within the harm none, and some witches get really hung up on that, but I feel like there is a certain point at which we all can kind of agree. So, again, it doesn't bother me, but other people do, so there's that part of it. But for the most part, this book is really, not also for the advanced witch, and for some, it could be. I know that, I don't know, for me, it's once you've done this for 10 years, actively really studying and making it a part of your everyday, inevitably these things will come up. Typically, I've yet to find a witch that this hasn't come up after practicing for over 10 years, but there could always be one or two out there. But for the most part, these are topics that once you've got that foundational work done, this is how you might want to start to analyze other parts of your life. And she talks about, your sacred space, your home, your living situation. How are you going to deal with that in a witchy way? Do you have roommates? How is that going to work out? Do you have a partner? How's that going to work out? And also, house cleaning with a magical twist to it. stuff like that. You know, the topic of most witches tend to be, obviously not all, but a lot of us tend to be a little more health conscious and more into kind of, I don't know, like the old wives' tales of dealing with things, you know, the alternative medicines of, instead of taking a pill from a pharmacy, maybe let's try, you know, cooking up this specific soup, or you're gonna have this tea for a week instead of take a pill, because that's obviously just gonna magically fix everything. Of course, there's always the disclaimer, like, if you break your arm, putting a clear quartz crystal on it isn't going to fix that. Go to the doctor. But, you know, little things. If you have a cold, you might try and, you know, try echinacea tea and stuff like that to take care of it. And so she talks about that. And one of the reviews, people were a little upset with some of her jokes. Personally, as somebody who is definitely overweight, I could appreciate it. Like, she talks about, like, finding balance in your diet and having, like, a brownie in one hand and french fries in the other, and, like, that's not the balance we're talking about. Obviously, it was a joke, and I got it, and as somebody who is definitely not skinny and not healthy, I can appreciate that. But other people have been kind of offended by it. I don't mind. I am very open about the fact that, like, I have definitely gained so much weight. Like, I have basically 100 pounds to lose. And so for me, it's like, yep, I'm fat and I do make unhealthy choices, because, like, french fries are not a healthy option. Like, that's not the balance we're aiming for, right? But having that, like, you know, go and get takeout food for, like, the full moon or whatever, like, sure, go for it, whatever. But for the most part, like, maybe eat a salad instead of a burger, you know? Like, a lot of witches tend to try and be a little more health conscious. And of course, there's always the discussion of, like, eating organic and local and that harm and all of that. And this book, it just encourages you to think about it and kind of consider these things. I didn't feel like it was very preachy. It was just like, these are topics you might want to consider in your craft. Then there's also, like, a section on, like, being single and having a sexual relationship, and obviously practicing harm none, and just having the adult discussions you need to. STDs don't care if you wear, you know, the rune of protection. It don't care. It's going to probably infect you, and you're going to need to take a medication and or have other complications. You might have an unwanted pregnancy, and, you know, there's just a lot that can go wrong. Consent is key, stuff like that. And I feel like that topic could have not just been for the single witch. Like, even as, you know, you're in a relationship, it's still something you want to consider and always check in with your partner on. Not necessarily, like, worried that they've got something, but just, you know, there's a lot. You're mingling your energies, and, like, I'm totally in the camp of, like, when you're intimate with a person, your whole energy fields, whatever you want to call them, your chakras, your aura, your whatever, the essence of who you are mingles to some degree with the other person. And in doing that, sometimes you might want to do protection magic, because if they got a lot going on, you know, like, it's going to inevitably kind of seep into you and vice versa. And so, like, wish that topic was a little bit more in depth, like, not just single and, like, hanging out with people and hooking up with whoever. Obviously, that's definitely a set of people, but also, if you're a witch and you've been in a relationship for a while, it's still a topic, if you're going into this, to consider, you know? But again, it didn't really bother me too much. She also talks about, like, raising kids as pagans and how that can kind of be difficult to navigate, because obviously some people have issue with you raising your kids in witchcraft. If we ever have kids, I don't see a problem with it, because, like, if you can bring your infant to a church or a synagogue or whatever, I can bring them to our little circle out in our backyard doing witchcraft. Like, religion's religion, obviously. Like, we don't have a very overtly sexual Beltane. We focus on other aspects of it, so, like, it's fine for us. And so, you know, if we had kids, it'd be easy to be like, okay, so Halloween is what most people do, but, you know, we also go and visit our family, and this is the time, you know, there's a reason that there's skeletons and skulls and all these images of death around, because our dead loved ones are coming to say hi, you know, keep it age appropriate, whatever. But, you know, you can have your little kids go visit the family graves and stuff. and understand that there's ancestors they don't know, there's family they won't know, but you can tell them through stories. And like there's great resources on that. So if that's like one of the chapters you're like, man, I wish they had more on, there are a few. So like one that I have is Circle Round, and it has like 3 authors, and I can't see it from here, it's on the other bookcase. But there are a few books on raising pagan kids, and I think she actually might have mentioned it in here. I feel like she did. Like when I was looking up my notes to maybe have some stuff for the Patreon discussion, pretty much all I got was, I want to read the recommended readings, basically, because there is just so much going on. I don't see the thing, but I feel like she talked about it. But anyways, the recommended readings in this is phenomenal. I want to read them. Some of them I have, some of them I haven't. Actually, a majority of them I haven't. So it'll be interesting to read through those. So if you're like, I want more books, she definitely has a lot of recommended reading to go through. But like overall, these are great topics if you haven't considered how you're going to have your craft. Are you going to be solitary, in a coven, stuff like that? Like, these are all things I've considered since I've been a witch. And I mean, I'm going on my 13th year in a couple months. It'll be 13 years of practicing witchcraft. And so for me, it's like, yeah, I've already been there, done that. Like, I have my own modified variation of being solitary, but also having kind of a coven space that is actually starting on Patreon this month. Next week, actually, is our first circle. So if you want to join, we're doing a full moon ritual together. So that's like my variation of a coven space and like the channel and stuff. And like I've tried local groups, it never works out. So I'm not going to hold my breath over having one locally. And also being solitary can be kind of lonely and you want to have people to talk to. So it's like, how do you finagle that? And again, it's like, these are topics like I've already been there. I've already discussed this. I lucked out. I found a partner that is also pagan. So it's fine. Like we're both working through, he's on a different one, but he's working through the Temple series as well from Penzac. And so like it works out. We have this space that this room is going to be mostly our witchy room. The only difference is that I also have my normal books and then my office desk spot, little corner. But the rest of this room is witchy. And so, like, for us, it works out just fine. But for other people, you know, if other people that I had considered dating and dated over the years, like, that wouldn't have worked out. So it just is like, these topics, they come up if you're just starting to think about it. It's a great resource. If you've already been there, done that, don't know that there's anything like revolutionary in this, but it definitely gives you a lot of topics to consider. And of course, sometimes you might just need a refresher course on a few things of like, oh yeah, I should probably spiritually clean and mundanely clean. I should do that. Maybe look up the herbs and like make a spritz of some sorts and just spritz your room with a couple different essential oils mixed with water, or even a couple crystals in there if they're water, you know, safe, because some will dissolve. But anyways, so just stuff like that. Like this book, it definitely has a lot of things that will help for just kind of like, if you haven't considered these things, you got the basics down and now you're like, how do I apply this into all aspects of my life? This is very helpful. So anyways, I would definitely recommend it. It's a good book to read. I liked her humor. Again, other people didn't, but I thought it was hilarious. She makes little jokes here and there throughout it, so it kind of makes it fun to read through. It's not super serious all the time, but also isn't too much. Some of the books are like a little too casual, and it doesn't feel like that either. So overall, I would definitely recommend this book. I would love to hear your thoughts on this one if you've read it in the comments down below or in a video response. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all soon.